Welcome everybody to the Keeping Score podcast from the Daily Interlake and Hagedorn Sports Media. I am Josh Amick. This week on this edition of Range Riders Recap, we have a lot to unpack and there is a cause for celebration. The Range Riders officially clinched a playoff spot. We will look at how they did that, what to expect in the second half of the season, a record-breaking performance from Christian Kirtley, and yet another new face to the team. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Tuesday, the Range Riders began a 6-game series against the Boise Hawks, and Game 1 did not go quite as planned. After being tied 4-4 heading into the bottom of the 8th, the Hawks would play 3 runners and took a 7-4 lead. The Range Riders were shut out over the final 3 frames of the game, and the Hawks took Game 1 7-4. In Game 2, the Range Riders showed us exactly who they are. Now, last week I mentioned how this team has been resilient throughout the whole first half of the season, and Wednesday they showed again just that resiliency. After the Hawks plated 4 runs in the bottom of the 7th, they took a 5-2 lead, and the Range Riders immediately responded in their half of the 8th. Chad Castillo doubled to score 2 and later scored the tying run on a J.D. McLaughlin sac fly. With the game tied up 5-5 after 9 innings, the greatest rule in all of baseball came into effect again, the knockout round. Chad Castillo was elected once again for the Range Riders and would hit 5 home runs, tying a knockout round high by none other than Chad Castillo. The Boise Hawks only mustered up 1 home run, and the Range Riders took that game 6-5 in the knockout round thanks to Chad Castillo. Thursday, the Range Riders' bats were shut out by the Hawks pitching staff as they only mustered up 5 hits and lost the game 3-0. Not a lot of highlights in that game. In Game 4, it was a different story though, as the Range Riders responded with 7 runs in their first 3 innings and ended up winning the game 10-6. The Range Riders hit 4 home runs by Ty Penner, Chad Castillo, and AJ Skepkowski, but it was Christian Kirtley's home run that stole the show. Kirtley hit a solo home run in the 7th inning to give the Range Riders a 9-5 lead. That home run was Kirtley's 16th of the season, a Range Riders team high, but that also gave him 31 for his career, which passed Dean Miller as the Range Riders' all-time home run leader. Congratulations to Kirtley for becoming the all-time leader and being a part of that huge series win against Boise. Saturday was my game of the week, and for good reason. Gabe Howell had a huge game as he went 4 for 5 with 3 RBIs and hit a monster 450-foot home run to center field. While Howell carried the offensive side, it might have been the performance from Montana Quickly that helped the Range Riders seal the game in their 8-5 victory. Holding an 8-2 lead in the 5th inning, the Hawks plated 3 runs and had the game-tying run at the plate with still no outs. Manager Paul Fletcher then brought in Quickly, who made quick work of the Boise Hawks lineup and struck out the next 3 batters. Quickly went on to retire all 15 batters he faced, and that win officially clinched a playoff spot for the Range Riders for the first time in team history. It was fitting that that game was won on the backs of Quigley and Howell, as Quigley has been with the team since last year, and Howell is one of the few players who has been with the team since their first season in 2022. With the team clinching a playoff spot on Saturday, Sunday they didn't have a lot to play for, and they rested a lot of their starters. They would use 6 total pitchers, giving them a rest as well, as Boise won that game 10-5. That's it for this week's scoring recap, so let's get into this week's edition of In Case You Missed It. The Range Riders are going dancing for the first time in their 3-year history. After finishing the first half of the season as one of the top 2 seeds in the Pioneer League, they locked themselves into a playoff spot regardless of how the second half of the season ends. So the Valley can rejoice because come September, the Range Riders will be in the playoffs. Also, in case you missed it, the Range Riders signed Kevin Johnson to the team after he was released by the Idaho Chuckers. In 29 games with Idaho, Johnson hit .319 with a .448 on-base percentage. He does not have any home runs this year, but his high on-base percentage clip should pay dividends for the Range Riders in their second half of the season. Speaking of the second half of the season, it begins this Tuesday at home for the Range Riders, and will be a great test as they face the team that was above them in the standings, the Missoula PaddleHeads. In their only matchup this season, Missoula won the first 4 games at home, before the Range Riders responded and won the next 2. Hopefully that momentum and that confidence will lead into this series as the Range Riders kick off the second half of the season. That's it for this week's edition of the Range Riders Recap. Fans, make sure you make it to the ballpark Tuesday, as I'm sure there will be a huge celebration as the team clinched their first ever playoff berth. For the Keeping Score podcasts and Daily Interlake and Hagedorn Sports Network, I'm Josh Amick, and until next time, take care.